So hello, how are you? I genuinely want to know the answer to this, but more importantly, I want you to ask yourself this. So take a moment, just kind of settle in, maybe close your eyes, and just take a few deep breaths and be like, hello, insert your name here, how are you? And just, when was the last time you genuinely asked yourself this question? Maybe it is a practice that you have, but most of the time we tend to forget to really ask this. So tune into how you're feeling today, this morning, quality of your body, mind, or even like your life in general. How is that feeling? Okay? So maybe it's feeling, where do I point this for the best efficiency? Help me. Maybe if I do it like saucy with like a hip. Okay, no. But you're welcome for that. Okay. What do we? Oh wait, there's something that.
Restarting something.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, okay, but do you want to tell me how you're doing? Question? Okay, you're all shy. Whatever. Okay, maybe you're feeling like these guys. Okay, like generally in life, you know. Or you're feeling more like this. Now, if you're feeling like this, like don't hide that, okay? Like own it. But unfortunately, most of us feel a little stressed out. I love this one. My brain has too many tabs open, right? We just have so much going on. It's almost impossible to not have a million things going on, right? But the unfortunate thing about that is that stress levels are really, really high. In fact, in the past year, 74% of people have felt so stressed that they have felt overwhelmed and unable to cope. Which that phrase, unable to cope, I feel like is like a severe understatement. But like, you know what I mean. And stress has become a worldwide epidemic according to the World Health Organization. And so what has become stress can be used to our benefit. It helps get our adrenaline going. It can help get us through hard times. But it's become like a constant. Like we are stressed all the time. And I see it in my work with my own clients. Like their stress comes, or their pain really comes from stress, where they've had like a traumatic experience or it's stress over time. That's the real reason their body is freaking out at them. So, yes. So why am I talking about stress right now when the subject is intention? Well, in this talk, I want to illustrate how living with intention is a key player in reducing the stress in your life and also helping you clear some clutter so you can access your creative process. So intention can be taken a lot of different ways. It's a very broad topic, but since it's Creative Mornings, we're going to talk about it more in your, like accessing your creativity. And as Ashley already read, this quote from the Creative Mornings head of content, beauty grows from the seed of a clear intention. So we want to get to that clear intention. So a little bit of backstory about me, why I have something to say on this, especially in the creative world. I did grow up a theater nerd and in the creative world. I'm not your traditional kind of maker, but I have been on the stage and in improv. That's me with the cool braces over there. Maybe some familiar faces for you old schoolers in the room. Go Bruins? I don't know. Okay, anyway, I was a theater person. Okay, but I also play music, so I'm a singer-songwriter. I've been playing angsty songs about boys ever since I was a youth, and I don't play too much anymore, but I am still in a band with my dad and Dakota Kate and Charlie and Mary Johnson at the Troll Bar at the Sons of Norway, which is a good time. But I definitely resonate with the creative kind of stereotype. Like I was like a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person. I would come and go with the wind. I didn't want any structure. I didn't want a traditional job. And I traveled a lot and I wandered a lot. here's me packing up my car with some friends to go live in Jackson Hole for the summer. I think I was like 18 in that picture. That's me doing a study abroad in Spain, but I always lived my life in a way where I didn't have to really follow a lot of rules and I could do a lot of cool things, which was great. But in reality, it kind of wasn't. When I was in high school, I was diagnosed with depression, and so that was an underlying thing going on. So I would get in these cycles of like getting really excited, really passionate, wanting to pursue all these things, big dreams, and then I would get overwhelmed and I'd get in my head and I would just kind of self-sabotage a lot of what I did, and I just felt more comfortable playing small, even though that's really wasn't what was within, and I kind of felt like that. Can anyone relate? Okay. And that was really unfortunate, and it wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I started to have panic attacks, and for anyone who's had one of those, it's like debilitating. And as I matured, I really wanted to do something, and I wanted to help people, and having that part of how I operated wasn't good, and it wasn't working, and I couldn't just go under the radar anymore. And so that's when I was like, all right, something has to change, and how can I use my sensitivities and my creativity and my wanderlust in a way that actually serves me instead of something that destroys me. And so through my healing journey and what even led me to have the career that I have, it came down to my daily habits and my intention about the life that I wanted to have. And there's this quote by Wayne Dyer, "Our intentions create our reality." And I would even argue that our non-intentions or not being intentional also creates our reality. The habits that we have, the life that we have, they're going to happen with or without us. So why not get a little bit more clear and move forward creating what we actually want in the world instead of always kind of being a victim to it. So that's my story. Thank you, goodbye. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that is my story, and that's all well and good, but how does this relate to you, right? You have a different story, you've had different things, and that's what I want to help you learn today, is that intention isn't necessarily something else you have to add to your to-do list. You all have a lot going on, and it's like, and I hear this a lot when I talk about self-care, it's like, oh, I don't have time for that, and you just get to do yoga all day, so like, good for you, which is not true. But now I can do coffee yoga though, that's a new thing. But anyway, the good news for you all is that intention is less about what you are doing, it's how and why you are doing it. Okay, so here are some examples. How? So how we work at our desk, right? Or at a computer or on our screens. We can either give in to gravity and vegginess, and have very actually severe results. A lot of chronic pain comes from just sitting like that. Or we can have some intention around it, some healthy habits around it, and sit with proper posture, bolster ourselves, have some healthier habits around our desk working. Same amount of time, same task, but you have a different intention about it. So even just sitting here now, like, just do a little body scan. Can you sit a little taller, a little more alignment? You don't have to, I know it's early. Just saying. If you're sitting, why not sit a little more productively? All right, so why? I love Martina. Okay, let's talk about sweets, right? Without intention, we might just be following our cravings, when we're hungry, whatever, we can just like all of a sudden have way too many sweets, right? But if we change our reason behind eating sweets or putting it in our body, maybe it can look a little bit more like this. And it's, P.S. Ashley Morgan totally inspired my gifts today, I want you to know. She's like the gift queen. But anyway, say it's like your mom's birthday and she loves a certain type of ice cream. Then you're eating that because you want it to be a celebratory thing. So changing the how, changing the why, but you're doing the same task. All right, so how do we let's get more into the tangible of like living with intention. What does that actually look like? And the first step is creating awareness around what you're doing. A lot of us were going on autopilot. We're just doing things they maybe were intentional at one point, but now you've kind of forgotten and it's become a habit that maybe doesn't even serve you that well anymore. So one of my first wake-up calls for awareness was, I love a good TV show. There's a lot of good quality television out there, and I have a talent for binging. I can really just get into it. And one time, before I had a healthy balance with television, I was watching something. I don't remember what it was, but everyone was really pretty, and they were doing real pretty things. And I liked it. So I was watching it, and I was like in their world, and I'm like, I'm pretty with them, and I dress like that, and I have this drama, whatever. And then there was like a scene change, and the screen went black for an extended period of time, and I caught a reflection of myself, and I was like, oh, I'm not that pretty. I was like, this is how I look. I definitely hadn't showered. I was in my pajamas. I had like selfie face going on. It was just like not what I had in my mind. And I definitely kept watching after that. But then after that, I was like, okay, something has to change. I need a healthier relationship with this. But our bodies do that. Ourselves do that. If we don't pay attention, all of a sudden we're going to have a wake-up call, and a lot of times they're not happy. And there's this quote in the healing world: if you don't listen to your body whisper, you'll have to hear it scream. So how many times do you have that like nagging neck pain and you're like, shh, go away, I've got stuff to do, and you just ignore it, and then all of a sudden your like neck freezes out when you're reaching for something in the shelf or whatever, and then you have to get a lot of intervention. So the key is to have practices in place where you're constantly checking in with yourself, so you know how you're doing. You know if something's off. You know if you need to bring in something more healing or you need to stop doing something. So intentional practices. This is the magic, and we'll talk a little bit about that now. And I actually want to show you one real quick. So, belly breathing break. Woo! Okay. I don't know if I get excited about this. So, who in here is already breathing? Okay, cool. So again, you can either have your breath work for you or against you. So let's do some focused belly breathing. So let's put a hand on the belly and a hand on the chest. And we want the hand on the belly to be the one expanding, and the one on your chest to be chilling out. So this might feel really good, or it might be really hard for you. The first time somebody had me do this, I was like, wait, what? Because we've trained ourselves. These are our primary breathing muscles, our low belly, and these are our secondary, but we flip-flop it for many reasons. But most of us are stress breathing up with our necks. So we want to bring it down to the belly. And the more you practice this consciously, the more you'll do it unconsciously. But this can become a healing stress breath for you instead of up here. So you can keep your hands there. You can bring them back down. But the breath is a gateway to yourself. No matter what's going on around you, you can always control your breath, and you can always use that as like, okay, I'm going to think about my breath. Oh, my shoulders are up here. Oh, like I'm panicking. You can use it as a gauge, okay? So there you go, little tool for you. But most of these intentional practices require some sort of routine or schedule. I've adopted the word rituals because that makes it sound a little bit more fun than like a routine. But there's a great book out there called Daily Rituals, How Artists Work, and I really recommend it, especially for this crowd. But it basically goes through famous artists, writers, musicians, and says what their daily practices are. And I was surprised when I read it because all these brilliant minds and brilliant creators have very strict schedules and routines. And quite quirky, but they're there. And I was like, okay, well, this goes against my free spirit, anti-structure artist way, but this is the wisdom here. And so this quote I love: a solid routine fosters a well-worn groove for one's mental energies and will help stave off the tyranny of moods. Another quote from there: the more details of our daily life we can hand over to the effortless custody of automatism, the more our higher powers of the mind will be set free for their own proper work. And I love that phrase, higher powers of the mind. How many of us take the time to really access that part of our minds, especially when we're creating, right? A lot of it is like, oh, I gotta create this real quick, and then, you're dealing with your stress. But when you clear away some clutter and you make it that a routine, like the things that you don't, like what you're gonna eat for breakfast, what you're gonna wear, you automatize as much as you can, then you don't have to think as much, and you can access your creative process a lot easier. One last quote from this book: if you have to discipline yourself to achieve art, you discipline yourself. And I love this because a lot of us want to work around what we need to do to create our best work, and we think we're an exception, but we're not. We're special, but we're not special, really. And so whatever you have to do, and you probably know what that recipe looks like for yourself, but that's just the truth. If you have to discipline yourself, you just have to. Everything in this world operates by routines and cycles, and I love the example of nature. So there are seasons that always happen. Animals, have their seasons. Nature, the Fibonacci spiral, like that's a thing, and like it's following, like nature loves math, like what? So it's like, why are we different from that? We're not. And so adding rhythms to our own life, adding rituals, it's not a way to keep us in and cramp our style. It's actually the wiser path for health and wellness and to be who we want to be in the world. So the next book that I highly recommend is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, and he talks about this thing called the habit loop. So another thing is, I don't know about you, but like every Monday, I'm like, I'm gonna be a new person. I'm gonna wake up at this time and eat this food and da-da-da-da-da. And then like, maybe I do it on Monday, but then like slowly after that, I'm like back to who I was. I'm like, next Monday, But like we need to give our brain time to actually reroute the wiring that's going on. And the habits that you have, even the bad ones, were created by this habit loop. So things are, again, they're being created without us knowing, so why not shift it a little bit? So the habit loop is there's a cue, a routine, and a reward. So here's an example from the book. You have a craving for relief, okay? You have this cue, I need relief, this guy looks really angsty. And then, okay, I like grabbing wine with my friends, so I'm gonna have a drink. And then reward, yay, I feel relaxed. Well, the key to changing a habit is to keep the cue and the reward the same, but to change the routine. And so you realize what you like about the routine, which is maybe socializing. So you have your cue, you reach out to your friend and you have your socializing and you de-stress that way, and then you have the reward. So you keep the cue the same, the reward the same, and you change the routine. And you have to do this long enough to where it actually rewires it. And there's, philosophies on how long that is, but it is actually unique to how you are wired. So be gentle with yourself. Don't think you have some personality flaw when you can't change something. You have to take the time necessary. All right, so along those, there are intention pitfalls, right? That phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And even John Steinbeck says intention, good or bad, is not enough, which is true. Intention is kind of a airy-fairy thing, and it can be a great thing to get you going and get you inspired, but then if you don't really do anything about it, it just stays in there. And so, oh no, that came in the wrong order. That's okay. This is what you have for you, and I'm going to show you how. So intention without action. It's reverse storytelling. It's a thing. Okay. Intention without action is nothing. If you don't bring it into the tangible world, it's really not going to do much. So I came up with a math equation. Intention plus action equals magic. Hooray. There we are. So, action. What does that look like? Well, I'm going to sum up some key points and have some examples that can maybe give you some ideas on how action can look like. And it's going to look differently from everybody. And that's a key thing to remember, is that your healing path, your intentional path, your process is not going to look like what you see on Instagram. It's not going to look like what it looked like for me or what you think it should be. That's such a dangerous way of going about anything that's a unique process to yourself. It shouldn't look like anything. It should look like what comes up for you when you tune in to your own inner wisdom, okay? So remember, you don't need a life do-over. This is a big one. I'm going to have a makeover, and I'm going to do this 23-week step, blah, 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 and I'm going to be new. It's not go big or go home. It just takes focusing on the how and the why, and just tweaking what you're already doing in your life in a way that serves you a little bit more. And you can give meaning to the mundane. We all have to do mundane tasks that we don't like. I have, photographer friends that, some love editing, but some hate it, and it's like not their favorite part, but you have to do it. So it's like there's these things about running a business. There's just things that suck, but you can give meaning to it and add a little oomph to it to make it an exciting, rewarding thing. So some examples would be, I am staying at this job because I appreciate the financial support. I'm learning some things that could help me in the future, and it takes the pressure off my creative passions to provide for me for now. Here at Coffee Yoga definitely fits into this. Okay, while I'm making my morning coffee, I will not have the news blaring, unless that's a healing thing for you. But I'll use this time to set my intentions for the day, have a gratitude practice, tune in to how I'm doing. The next thing to remember, intentional routines create freedom. Try to understand that because I didn't for a really long time. I'm still fighting it. I'm still working on it, but I'm getting better. Example, doing a free write brain dump journaling session every day helps clear my head for my creative projects. Keeping my home clear of clutter calms me down and reduces my cleaning time, so I focus on the things I actually love to do. That's what I'm working on. Every night before bed, I stretch to process the stress of the day. That helps me sleep better and wake up with less pain. So it's, again, having these motivating things in place that actually have a strong why behind it, so you can do the things that you love. And last thing, take the time to pause and see how things are influencing you. So here are some examples. Mindlessly browsing social media creates brain fog, distracts me from my goals, and kind of makes me feel bad about myself. Anyone relate to that one? Okay. But again, we just do it and we don't really think about how it's affecting us. Sometimes it can be inspiring, and you can choose who you follow, and you can have it be an inspiring thing, but sometimes it doesn't. So you got to gauge that. My diet of donuts doesn't really make me feel that great. It's important feedback. Wow, I getting as typo English major freaking out right now. Okay, getting a walk in every day clears my head and gives me creative ideas without distraction. So you do something that makes you feel good, take note of that and use that as motivation for the future. This friend is actually really draining, or this friend always makes me feel like $1,000,000. So the people that we're surrounding ourselves with, you get to be really honest about that, because all of these things play a big part. So it's possible to feel like this more often, everyone. Thank you, Beyonce. But it takes intention, and it takes really getting there. And you have a choice. Please remember that you have a choice in your day. You have a choice with how you want to feel. These things that you don't really love, there's tons of things out of our control, and I don't want to say that there isn't. There are things that are going to influence us. There's always going to be stress. There's always going to be something to recover from and reevaluate. But a lot of your daily habits, you have a choice. You have a choice in the kind of career you want to have. It might take a few more steps, but you have a choice in that. You have a choice in your mood. You have a choice in healing something within you. And it's just continually choosing that, even if it's challenging, and knowing that, and I know from personal experience, that you can shift things. And it took me a long time, and I'm still working on a lot of things, but my life is a lot happier from making really tough calls. But it can be as simple as what you're putting in your body, how you're starting your day. These little things go a long way. And the things that you have in your life that are kind of maybe chronic pain or whatever, those were created through small and simple habits most of the time. And so the way to counter that are through small and simple habits. So don't underestimate these small and simple things over time, because they're going to create who you are. So that's my talk. Something to think about. We're going to do a little bit of journaling in a moment, but something to take with you: what daily habit adds to your stress? Just start thinking about that. Maybe one or two things that aren't really serving you that much, and how could you transform it into something that serves you? This thought experiment can be very helpful. So with that, that's the end.